From pious graduate to wanted man, Kyle Foster has been around the world many times over. For the better part of the last 15 years, he's lived in Yemen, working, raising a family, standing on the front lines as one of the oldest countries in the world is slowly being overtaken by terrorists.
We heard shots about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I knew they'd come for me. I don't know how I knew, but
7,800 miles from those gunshots, we find Kyle Foster's hometown. Growing up a track star, a Husker fan, he was your typical Lincoln teenager, a teenager who always wanted more.
I was always interested in politics, and particularly in the Arab Middle East as a hot spot, a place where there's a lot of politics going on all of the time.
But tensions in the Middle East in the early 1980s created roadblocks. Foster went to the University of Nebraska, majoring in literature before an opportunity finally came knocking with the Peace Corps in 1989.
Peace Corps, the toughest job you'll ever love.
I grew up going to Catholic schools, and John F. Kennedy, his picture was always there, kind of just an inch or two below Christ somewhere in the room, and we knew that, he was instrumental in starting the Peace Corps, and that was a dream for me as well.
Foster's first experience in Yemen wouldn't last long, forced to flee during the Gulf War. He would go to graduate school, earning his degree in international development before Yemen came calling again in the late 90s. Documenting his journey along the way, he worked as a contractor for different humanitarian organizations like CARE and USAID, heading up projects.
Really targeting the poorest of the poor and some of the most poverty-stricken areas on the planet. We worked in areas villages that had no electricity, no water, no schools, no medical facilities.
A world traveler for so long, Yemen became home. He married his wife in 2008. They now have 3 daughters.
But it's still a wonderful place, and 99% of the people are fantastic, and it's not just all terrorists running around. Most of the Yemeni people are just concerned about taking care of their families and being good neighbors.
But as the years passed, life in Yemen started to change. He says Al-Qaeda had a presence of just more than 300 militants in the mid-2000s. In under a decade, he estimates that number had grown to about 5,000, and now he was a target.
I think I was targeted. I'm a big fish, so to speak. I was an American.
He knew Luke Summers, an American photojournalist captured earlier this year by Al-Qaeda and killed just weeks ago. You were telling me you would change your route to work.
Yeah, every day. Change your route to work, change your time. Sometimes wear a disguise. If I was going out of the city, I would often wear a turban and sunglasses and drive a little bit quickly.
In February of this year, fear became reality on a night Foster heard gunshots just some 20 yards away.
And I just knew, maybe subconsciously, I'd been expecting them. Got my wife and kids down on the ground, locked the door. I went up to the roof, looked around.
What Foster saw was an attack. He says he later found out the terrorists were looking for him, but they had gone to the wrong house. 2 militants were killed in the operation. Foster, his wife, and 3 kids escaped. He alone fled across the Gulf of Aden to Ethiopia. His family left behind in the hands of the Yemeni government.
I have friends in the Yemeni government as well. I was able to call people up and network and meet on an almost daily basis.
Months passed before Foster took diplomacy into his own hands.
I came back to Yemen in early June, where I took a private safe house in the old city of Sana'a.
There, with the help of the Yemeni and American governments, he finally got visas for his wife and 3 daughters, landing on American soil, believe it or not, on July 4th.
We were all breathing a sigh of relief, and then we met with Homeland Security there, who were wonderful as well.
Used to the pace of Yemeni life, like his family, who had never touched foot in the U.S., Foster needed to adjust.
There are some elements of it that seem a little bit sci-fi. Things like banking and the new way credit cards are done and all of this, I'm still trying to figure it out.
Why do we need to care? Why does somebody in Lincoln, Nebraska need to care about what's going on over there?
We know that they're out there, and we know that they'd still like to wound our country and and wound our way of life. So it's become an increasingly small world, and we need to all care about it.
Foster says it took him months to come to terms with that night, the assassination attempt on his life for simply being an American. But now he's ready to share. He's in the process of writing a book about his second life in Yemen.
It's in my soul. I've got a wonderful wife and children. I wouldn't change it for the world. I've had the most interesting, exciting life of anyone I know.
Foster will turn 50 next month. Asked whether he would ever like to return to Yemen, the place that gave him so much and almost took it all away. He says he'd like to visit, but the next chapter in his life will start right here, where it all began, at home in Lincoln, Nebraska.